Okay guys, I should have bought this a long time ago when I bought the tractor. I finally bit the bullet and brought it home a couple days ago. So I've been, you know, using the wired-on lawnmower, the weed eater, the push weed eater, I guess. It has a big motor on it, has wheels, has a big weed eater head on it, and that does a pretty good job for places you can't get the lawnmower. And you know, it's just, some areas are just so big, and right now I have so many weeds right now in a couple areas that when they're seeding, they're blowing across the road to my neighbor's house, and he's a farmer, and that really struck me the other day that I can't be letting this keep going on. I'm not growing anything on my property, but he is, and so this will help minimize what he has to fight next year. Anyway, this is the Brush Chief 6 foot. It wasn't super expensive, but this is, I wanted to buy the county line one, but I was reading reviews and it was only rated up to 45 horsepower, and I don't know if that's a thing or not. And some of the reviews said, oh, you know, my tractor trashed it's 45 horsepower tractor and it trashed the gearbox, and I don't know, was that because of the tractor, or was it because the gearbox wasn't working right, or wasn't lubed, or, you know, who knows, I don't know. But I just bought this from my dealer that I bought the tractor from, just because I trust him, and this is the brand he likes and he buys, and they'll service it for me, they'll warranty it for me. They said just bring it back to them and they'll take care of it. So I'm pretty happy with that. I just want to make sure it's all greased good. When you get the grease gun out, hit all the grease points. We'll make sure it has oil in it, and make sure everything's tight. We'll go over all the bolts. I'll lift it up either with a 3-point, or I'll jack it up or something, get underneath it, put jack stands, and make sure the blades are all tight. And it does have an 5-year gearbox limited warranty, whatever that means. Limited, always worry about that word. There's an inspection hole there where you can see part of the, let's see if I can turn it. Well, it's probably jammed against the wood I have underneath it there. So this is, I slid some wood underneath it that I was bringing home the same day. Anyway, category 1, I'm excited. Hopefully this will do a good job for me. Let's get it off and get it inspected and get it going. So finally welded these center D-rings on a couple months ago, and I'm super happy. It worked out perfect. I was able to keep I asked Rick to drop this right in the middle of my welded on fenders so it couldn't move sideways, and then I just chained it in the middle on the front and the back so it wouldn't move forward and back. So it's perfect. And then I only had to use 2 chains instead of, you know, 4 chains to keep it from moving all directions. So that worked good. So I can't get close enough to get my hook directly over the motor where I want to lift it at. So what I'm going to do is roll the bucket, curl the bucket, use the front edge of the bucket to push the chain that way, and then hopefully I can get it more centered over that. I wanted to put the chain where it was more in line so it wouldn't tip so bad, right? But if I put the chain over here, then the chain might lift up and break off this little inspection thing. I didn't want to put the chain over here and have it pushing on this shaft either direction, so had to lift it a little higher just because it tipped so far, but it did the job. And my welds held. That's good. I think this is less than 1,000 pounds, so it should have done fine, but now I wish I had one of these right in the middle, because that would have made it more you know, more centered. If it did try to get tippy, it wouldn't try to pull it to the side, so that would have been better. I'll need to weld another hook on there someday. Okay, we're gonna do the drive shaft first. A few details here. This is the shroud for the motor input shaft. So we'll take that off, we'll bolt that on separately. Let's get this apart. These are chains that keep this from turning as the shaft itself is turning. So there's one on each side. These are the little buttons right here that you push to depress to loosen these. There's one there and one there, so that these will slide. And the manual actually is very, very exhaustive. It is 75 pages of nomenclature and how everything goes together. Super detailed, super detailed. And it's a lot of reading. So I've been trying to make my way through that. Bunch of safety stuff, of course, all the parts in the back. Okay, first thing it says to do is separate the shaft. So we're gonna pull it apart here. Okay, and that's what the insides look like. It looks like it's pretty well greased. I'm gonna grease it some more. But this is a triangular shaft that should fit any direction. And you know what? It doesn't. It only fits one way. Now let's go ahead and see if we can loosen this and slide this back. Push that down. Seems like it's easiest just to stand this up. Push in one of the tabs. Get it to pop over. Like that. We'll push down on this side. You can kind of feel it pop. There we go. Okay, now you can see what the little tabs look like. And you're just pushing them in like that. Okay, those are a pain. That one may come out a little bit better. Those white tabs slide in the little slots right on the sides there. Okay, so on this model, this will be the PTO side. And it does have a little push pin right there. This is the shaft side. This is the motor side. Grade 5 bolt for the shear bolt that goes through like that. Okay. Just make sure you use a nylon lock nut. Don't use a regular nut or even a nut and a lock washer. Okay, so here's a tool I never would have bought for myself, but I had loaned my tractor to my buddy a couple times and he was appreciative and bought this for me. This thing is a huge time saver and a lifesaver, and this might be my favorite powered tool, my favorite battery powered tool, because it just saves me so much time. If you don't have one of these, I would strongly suggest trying one out somewhere sometime, or save your pennies and nickels and dimes until you can get one, because it is so worth it. It saves so much time. It always primes right away. It always gets right back in service once the cartridge is empty, primes right away, and it just does the business. So you don't have to have the DeWalt brand, but this one does work really well. Here's another thing that saves a ton of time, the lock and lube. Okay. Okay, well this feels pretty well lubed up, but I'm going to go ahead and put some of this Yamalube race grease in it. This is for motorcycles and it is waterproof grease, so let's get the shear pin off. Also, when you go to put this together, this cover right here has to be back so you can actually put the linch pin in and then the snap ring back on, because the snap ring is going to go right inside here. Once you put this on the shaft, the cross pin will go in here, the shear pin, and then the snap ring will go right here. So keep this apart, keep the drive shaft apart. Don't put it together till after you get it on here. Once you get this secured to the shaft, then you can snap this back on, get the other shaft on, and then get it hooked up to the tractor. Okay, go ahead and align your shear pin hole horizontally. And then when you put this on,
should be able to line it up pretty easily. Okay. All right. Now, you do want to put this back on, because if your shear pin does break, this can come sliding off here and then be spinning out here on top of your deck. So this little snap ring will keep the PTO shaft on the output, or on the input shaft. Okay, there's the shear bolt. Tighten down. Good. The snap ring is in place right there. Good deal. Let's slide this back on. Now again, we want to align this tab right here. These other two don't have this little nipple, but this one does. So you want to align that with the elongated hole. That's the elongated hole. And these other two are sort of more, not as long. Okay, so we'll line that up with that. Okay, so we're going to connect our chain up here. Connect our chain back here as well. Grease is coming out the top and the bottom. That's plenty. Okay, it doesn't feel too tight, but it sounds horrible in there. Maybe some grease will help it. Here it comes on this side. Okay. Well, it sounds better. Okay, and you know, it's okay. If dirt does build up on this grease, it's on the outside of the joint. As long as there's grease filling that joint and keeping the dirt out, and you grease it often, it keeps pushing that dirt out and pushing that dirt out. So it keeps the dirt out of the joint, right? And this little documentation tube, I guess, is what's supposed to go in here. A couple shear bolts are going to go in there for me, and a couple 3/4 inch wrenches. A couple 3/4 inch combination wrenches. Hopefully that'll all fit in there. Okay. Okay, let's just slide under here. And I'm just curious, this is called 6 feet. And those blades go pretty close to the edge, but that's a couple inches there that I'm feeling robbed on. It's only not even 2 inches. And over here, probably the same thing-ish. Let's see here. Yeah. About 2 inches. Let's just see what this actual width is. Let's start here. Up the tape there. Come across here. There's 5 feet right there. 5 feet 7 inches. Okay, so this may be something you just want to look at, you know. This may be true of all of these. They have a 6-foot deck. Oops, and that is just a little over 6 feet, but it is a smaller cut. Okay, so my tractor is 6 feet wide, or just under 6 feet there. And, you know, this deck is 6 feet wide. It cuts a little narrower width than the actual true width of my tractor, which is okay. Maybe that's true of all these, I don't know, but maybe that's something you just keep in mind if you're looking for one of these. Okay, last thing to do is check the gearbox oil level. So we've leveled the deck, and there's the bubble right in the middle. We used the jack in the front. I had to extend this to get the deck to flatten out. So this is the level plug. So we'll unscrew this. If oil comes out, we know we have a good amount in it. If no oil comes out, we'll pull out this vent plug here and add some, and until it starts to come out this hole. If you don't have a pair of these are the Icon brand, the Nipex generics from Harbor Freight. Icon brand, I don't know if they're generic, but I love these things. I'm going to start carrying this in the tractor because this just fits. You can make it fit pretty much anything, and you can actually put a lot of torque on pretty much anything without having to carry all the wrenches. Okay, so definitely gear oil's coming out. We're going to just keep the plug in. And the cool thing is if you drop it, it holds its position. You want to start your PTO with the RPMs low. You don't want to raise your RPMs and then turn on the PTO, whether you have a button or a lever or you're using your clutch for it, and just have all that power hit it right away. This is a lot of rotating mass. It's pretty heavy. It's much heavier than an auger, so that can snap a shear pin. So we're going to just kind of idle it, engage it, and then raise up the RPM and just test it out here. Make sure nothing explodes. Parker brakes on. Okay, here's my PTO button. So we're going to turn it on here. That was still really loud. You might be able to see it in the camera, but I can see through that little hole. I can see it spinning. Let's see if we can zoom in there. So it is turning. Let's raise up the RPMs now. Let's go up to PTO speed, about 2,000. Okay, we got some weeds here. None of them are real super high. I walked this, there's no obstructions, there's no big rocks, there's nothing like that. Ant mounds. Let's get this thing engaged. We're gonna lower the RPM down to idle. Now we'll engage the PTO. All right, now we'll raise the RPM. Tell this is only about 18 inches high. Some of these weeds are probably 24 inches high, these yellow ones. So okay, so right now I'm just trying to figure out what my mark's going to be as I'm going along this edge, just like running your lawnmower on your lawn, whatever, right? You want to put the tire or some kind of visual mark that you have on the front of your tractor or your lawnmower or whatever along the edge, so you're not cutting too far and leaving grass sticking up, or you're not wasting too much space and going too far this way and overcutting too much. So it's kind of a fine line right now. I'm just running this front tire right on the edge of the cut, and that probably overlaps a little bit back here, but again, this isn't a full 6 foot cut. It's more like 5.5, so I think that seems to be working. I'm not really missing anything down the middle there, so that's good. Okay guys, here's another reason. If you are building up a road like we did here, we cut all this dirt out here, pushed it up, cut all dirt out on that side over there, pushed it up. So both sides, we got this nice crown now. It's great. It can rain, it can snow, it can pour, and this is always, water just, snow melts off it, water runs right off it. It's always very drivable. It's never muddy. But sometimes I would dig too close, trying to just, with the loader, and trying to get dirt up here, and that made some of the banks really, really steep. And so it'd be much better to have a gradual slope away from here, so that as you're brush hogging, you don't get too tippy. And that's why my worry is right through here, because it's kind of steep along that edge right over there. So I got to be careful. It's nice to have the AC working again. It's probably 80, mid 80s out there. And nice and cool here in the cab, keeping the dust down, keeping the sound down, keeping the bugs down. This is getting a little steep. I'm going to try to drop my tire off to the right a little bit further here. Probably doesn't look that bad on camera, does it? So I am in low range, so there won't be any bouncing. I've been running
this in mid-range, but low range for this sketchy stuff, you know, if you're right close to the edge of tipping over and you hit a bump and it bounces you, that can be the last thing, right? So just trying to be careful here. So, you know, I guess I'm kind of sensitive to that. My wife's grandfather, you know, I don't know how many years ago, was killed in a tractor rollover. So his tractor rolled over on him and he didn't survive. So that was really sad. So my father-in-law lost his dad when he was just a boy, and he was the first one to find him, and so it was pretty traumatic for him, I'm sure. Anyhow, not trying to scare you, but that's always in the back of my mind. So when my wife tells me, Eric, you wear your seatbelt while you're brush hogging along that bank, I'm like, yes ma'am, I'm doing it. So pretty good, maybe 30-40 minutes at the most just to do this side, and that's because I'm going slow and being timid, especially on the bank over there. So but it seems to be doing the business. I haven't broken anything yet.